A new trailer is out for Snow White, and if you thought that Disney was going to salvage this film after all the backlash that it received about the direction it was going in remaking the 1937 classic, you were wrong.
Once hailed as Disney's next breakout star, Rachel Zegler now finds herself at the center of one of the most embarrassing box office disasters in the company's history. But this isn't just a story about a bad movie. It's about a young actress who seemingly talked herself out of Hollywood's good graces. One viral quote, one awkward interview, and one shocking post at a time. What was supposed to be a fairy tale turned into a full-blown nightmare. Theaters were empty, co-stars distanced themselves. Even Disney executives, once fully behind her, are now rumored to be cutting ties. And behind all the chaos? A trail of controversy so messy, it makes the drama behind the scenes juicier than anything that made it to screen. So how did we get here? How did Rachel Zegler go from being Disney's modern Snow White to the face of one of its most hated remakes? Buckle up, because this story has it all. Betrayals, backlash, politics, lawsuits, and a PR train wreck that's still unfolding. And it all starts with one massive mistake. When Disney cast Rachel Zegler as Snow White, it wasn't just a casting choice, it was a statement. A young, up-and-coming actress with Broadway chops and a starring role in Spielberg's West Side Story under her belt. The studio was banking on her to bring a fresh edge to one of its most iconic classics. And with a jaw-dropping $270 million budget,
now, fans are growing more concerned about Disney's new Snow White remake, mostly because of what the lead actress has been saying to the press. Rachel Zegler has been described as a walking PR disaster for Disney.
This wasn't a side project. It was a full-blown tentpole release, meant to redefine the fairy tale for a new generation. But instead of becoming a beloved reboot, the film quickly collapsed into one of the most ridiculed releases Disney has ever put out. Opening weekend numbers were brutal. Critics tore it apart. And audiences? They didn't even show up? In fact, it had one of the worst second-week drops in Disney live-action history. Worse than Dumbo, worse than Alice Through the Looking Glass, and dangerously close to being labeled a historic flop. And as the numbers sank lower and lower, fingers started pointing. But not at the script, not at the studio. All eyes were on Rachel. Because from the very beginning, she had been digging her own grave. If there was ever a masterclass in how not to promote a movie, Rachel Zegler unintentionally taught it. Long before Snow White even hit theaters, Rachel had already managed to alienate the very fans Disney needed most. It started with her press tour interviews, where instead of celebrating the legacy of the original film, she openly mocked it. She described the classic 1937 version as outdated and cringeworthy. But the real jaw-dropper? When she referred to the prince, Andrew Burnap's character, as a guy who literally stalks her. Her tone wasn't subtle. She wasn't trying to reframe the story, she was throwing shade. And not just at the character, but at the entire fairy tale.
There's more. There's always more. Let's have a listen.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story.
For many longtime Disney fans, parents, and nostalgic viewers, this was the moment things turned. She wasn't just acting in a remake, she was rejecting the very story it was based on. And when people pointed it out, Rachel doubled down. In interview after interview, she insisted that this version of Snow White was about a woman who doesn't need a man, brushing off the romantic elements that made the original beloved for generations. The message was loud and clear. If you loved the old Snow White, this movie wasn't made for you. But that wasn't the only relationship she was quietly unraveling. Because while Rachel was busy torching the legacy of a Disney princess, she was also throwing her own co-star under the bus. Before the controversy, Andrew Burnap was excited. Like career-changing opportunity excited. When he landed the role of the prince, he thought this was his big break. A major Disney movie, worldwide recognition, and a chance to work alongside rising stars. He even described the moment he got the call as life-changing. "Wow, my life is really going to change from here," he told People magazine. And it did. Just not in the way he expected. because while he was preparing for the role, Rachel Zegler was busy tearing it down. During interviews, she took every chance to downplay the love story, and by extension, Andrew's entire purpose in the film. She casually dropped lines like, "All of Andrew's scenes could get cut."
There were reportedly not even going to be dwarfs either. Rainbow people instead, until there was a fan protest. And even the word dwarfs isn't mentioned in this remake. The film has people saying, don't mock sleepy as a neurological condition, and dopey isn't really dopey, that'd be rude.
Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. It was a brutal blow. What was supposed to be a romantic co-lead became an afterthought. Rachel made it clear. This wasn't about the prince. This was about her. And Andrew? Just a guy in the background. That attitude didn't just frustrate fans. It sparked serious backlash. Even David Hale Hand, the son of the supervising director on the original Snow White, spoke out. He slammed Rachel's comments as disrespectful to Walt Disney and the legacy his father helped build. It wasn't just bad PR, it was personal. And while the internet exploded with criticism, Disney stayed silent, at least publicly. But behind the scenes, things were already unraveling. And Rachel's next feud would take things to a whole new level. If Rachel Zegler's comments about Snow White stirred the pot, her feud with Gal Gadot straight up set the kitchen on fire. It all started in August 2024, when Rachel posted a message of support for Palestine, right in the middle of the film's promotional campaign. And while public figures are no strangers to sharing opinions online, the timing and platform raised major eyebrows. The post was tied to Snow White's trailer launch, instantly blending a politically charged message with a children's film. But here's where it got even messier. Gal Gadot, Rachel's co-star and the film's evil queen, had served in the Israeli Defense Forces under Israel's mandatory military service. She'd previously voiced support for Israel in the ongoing conflict.
Peter Dinklage questioned why the story even included the characters at all.
They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White.
Yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So, take a step back and look at what you're doing.
So yeah, Rachel's post wasn't just political, it was personal. The fallout was immediate. Disney executives were blindsided. Insiders say the studio was in full panic mode. Phones started ringing. Damage control meetings were held. And according to reports, Snow White's producer Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with Rachel face-to-face. Behind closed doors, the tension between Rachel and Gal only got worse. The two barely interacted during press events. At the European premiere in Spain, Gal didn't even show up. At Disneyland, Rachel played nice with fans while Gal promoted the movie alone, surrounded by kids dressed as her character. The vibe? Awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. And then came the security concerns. After Rachel's post, Gal reportedly started receiving unaliving threats. Things got so intense, Disney had to hire extra security just to protect her. Meanwhile, insiders claimed Rachel didn't fully grasp the ripple effect of what she'd done, or the danger she may have triggered. At this point, Disney was exhausted. But the drama wasn't done. Because while she was feuding with her own co-stars, Rachel picked a fight with someone even more controversial.
You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it, the disability, like we're a disability group, you just erased that whole image.
Just when you thought Rachel Zegler's PR disasters couldn't spiral any further, she went after the MAGA crowd. In a fiery Instagram post, Rachel didn't hold back. She wrote, "May Trump supporters and Trump himself never know peace." And that was just the beginning. She went on a full-blown rant, calling Trump voters a deep, deep sickness, and dragging them for clinging to what she called a false sense of security, masculinity, intelligence, patriotism, and humanity. And to top it off, she ended with a blunt, "F Donald Trump." Now, regardless of where anyone stands politically, this move was extremely risky. Because whether Disney liked it or not, a huge chunk of their movie-going audience includes conservative families. Parents, grandparents, people who grew up with Disney movies and were now expected to bring their kids to this remake. And Rachel had just told a massive portion of them, "You're not welcome." The backlash was immediate. The internet exploded. Trump supporters and right-wing media began calling for a full boycott of Snow White. The hashtag #Fire Rachel Zegler started trending. People flooded Disney's social media demanding her removal from the film. And once again, Disney was in full crisis mode. Producers reportedly flew out again to confront Rachel. This time, not just about co-star drama or press missteps, but about sabotaging the movie's entire audience base. And with the premiere looming and the controversy snowballing, Disney brought in a social media strategist to try and clean up the mess.
Rachel Zegler just had one of the most disliked trailers in history with Snow White, but now after all the controversy, she's come out slamming Gal Gadot.
Shortly after, Rachel posted a public apology saying, "I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further away from peace and understanding, and I'm sorry I contributed to that." But it was too late. The damage was done. And what came next would be the final nail in the coffin. Because while all this drama played out online, something even more embarrassing was happening in real life. By the time Snow White officially hit theaters, the controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler had already done its damage. But nobody expected just how bad it would get. Opening weekend was rough, but most assumed things would pick up. After all, it's Disney. It's a princess movie. The numbers always bounce back, right? Wrong. The film tanked so hard in week 2 that it broke records, but not the kind you brag about. A brutal 66% drop in ticket sales. Nearly every major critic slammed it. IMDb ratings plummeted. Social media lit up with memes calling it the worst live-action remake Disney has ever made. And it wasn't just bad, it was embarrassing. The worst part? Rachel Zegler decided to go watch her own movie in theaters with her friends. Except when she showed up, the place was nearly empty. The moment was captured in an Instagram story posted by a friend who jokingly cheered when Rachel's name appeared on screen. But the laughter quickly turned awkward because the camera panned across an almost completely deserted theater. Dozens of empty seats, echoes instead of applause. It didn't take long for this clip to go viral, and suddenly, a new trend emerged.
While we're on the subject of actresses and awards and hacks, do we have a moment for Rachel Zegler and Snow White? Because there is an update.
People filming themselves watching Snow White in empty theaters all over the country. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere you looked, people were posting clips of empty showings, mocking the film, mocking Rachel, and turning her passion project into an internet punchline. And behind the scenes, Disney execs were fuming. This wasn't just a box office flop. This was a cultural rejection. A $270 million misfire that had become the joke of the summer. And the rumors started swirling. Rachel Zegler wasn't just a PR problem anymore. She was a liability. And according to insiders, Disney was already working on how to cut her loose. By now, the situation had become unmanageable. Theaters were empty, audiences were furious, and Disney had just suffered one of the biggest embarrassments in its recent history. And at the center of it all? Rachel Zegler. Behind the scenes, the studio was scrambling. Executives reportedly held emergency meetings. According to leaked reports, Disney had already made the call. They were pulling back. Plans for any Snow White sequel? Quietly shelved. Marketing budgets slashed. And whispers began surfacing that Rachel had officially been dropped from future projects. And then came the legal storm. Unconfirmed reports hit the internet claiming that Rachel Zegler was preparing to sue Disney. Allegations of wrongful termination and even discrimination were floated around by supposed insiders. The claims sparked a frenzy online. Was Disney cutting ties to protect the brand? Or were they throwing Rachel under the bus to save face? But even if the lawsuit wasn't real,
there was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece. Was it Variety? Talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
The consequences were PR firms began distancing themselves. Brand deals dried up. Insiders claimed that Rachel had become radioactive, the kind of name that made executives nervous just hearing it. Worse, the co-stars who once stood beside her were now staying silent, or subtly walking away. Gal Gadot, who had initially tried to keep things professional, was reportedly fed up with the drama. Andrew Burnap, who had hoped for a breakout role, now found himself sidelined in the biggest flop of the year. No support, no shoutouts, just quiet exits and closed doors. Rachel had lost control of the narrative. What began as a bold reimagining of a Disney classic ended as a cautionary tale in Hollywood PR. Not just for Rachel, but for every studio betting on bold messaging without reading the room. But despite the backlash, one question still remains. At this point, Rachel Zegler's fall from grace feels almost cinematic, a rising star given the role of a lifetime, only to watch it implode in real time. From botched interviews to alienated co-stars, political firestorms to empty theaters, Rachel didn't just face backlash, she became the backlash. And Hollywood has a long memory. Studios are hesitant, agents are cautious, PR teams are ghosting her, and insiders say she's quickly burning through the goodwill that most actors spend years trying to build. Disney, once her biggest supporter, is reportedly doing damage control of their own, trying to salvage what's left of the brand while quietly moving on.
A series of controversies is threatening to derail the opening of Disney's latest big-budget blockbuster. I'm talking about the live-action remake of Snow White, which will be out next week.
And yet, in an industry where reinvention is everything, could this be just the beginning of a redemption arc? Hollywood loves a comeback. And if Rachel can keep a low profile, reframe the narrative, and land one solid, critically acclaimed role, there's a chance she could claw her way back. But it won't be easy, because right now she's not just fighting bad reviews, she's fighting an entire internet that turned her into a meme. The audience she needed most has already walked away. And the question now is simple. Can Rachel Zegler survive the very fairy tale that turned into her worst nightmare? So, what do you think? Is Rachel just another celebrity caught in a media storm? Or did she truly sabotage her own career beyond repair? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you thought this was wild, just wait until you hear what's happening with insert next topic teaser, e.g., another Disney remake that's already falling apart before it even hits theaters. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it.